Welcome, everybody, to the You Are Worthy Network. I've got a little extra energy today. I wonder if that's because it's Friday. Maybe, although, to be honest with you, my weekends are actually more busy than the weekdays, as crazy as that sounds. So I don't know. I don't know if that's the energy. I think the energy is because yesterday I didn't do a good job choosing gratitude. And it came out in some of my interactions, and it definitely came out in my mindset. But today I chose gratitude and I noticed the energy is a lot better. And you're like, Steve, we don't care. Just get to the interview. But I share these nuggets as we go because they're important. If they help me, they probably help somebody else. But I'm excited to be with all of you today, Friday. Happy Friday to all of you that have a traditional weekend coming up. I'm also excited because what's likely going to happen, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but based on what I'm seeing, we're probably in the network going to go over the 10,000 member mark. And I am super excited about that. I give God the glory for that. But I also thank each one of you because you see value in the group. You love hearing the interviews and the guests share their perspectives. So I thank each one of you for being a part of the network. With that said, I'm also excited to introduce you to our guest. I think you're going to love her. I think you're going to love her heart. I think you're going to love how she serves. I think you're going to love her heart for her family. I think you're going to love what she does. With that said, let me tell you a little bit about Marta. Marta Spirk is a speaking coach, a TEDx speaker, a best-selling author, and professional singer who helps women entrepreneurs turn their story into a powerful revenue-generating signature talk. She supports her clients in clarifying their message, delivering it with confidence, and leveraging speaking as a strategic income stream on stages, podcast, and within their own businesses. Through her coaching programs, keynotes, and podcast, award-winning book, The Empowered Woman, The Ultimate Roadmap to Business Success, Marta blends storytelling, thought leadership, and practical speaking strategies so women can be seen, heard, and paid for their voice. Awesome. Can't wait to dig into this. Marta, welcome to the You Are Worthy Network.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for our conversation.
Oh, it's going to be fun. So, like I was saying about the group when we were getting ready to, come on live, it's amazing how fast it's grown, and I love that people are watching from different parts of the world. Can you tell all our viewers where you live?
Yes, I am in Denver, Colorado, even though that's not where I am from originally. And I'm sure we'll get into that, but excited to connect. It's an amazing group that's forming. Congratulations on the success and the growth.
Thank you so much. Go ahead and tell us where you're from.
Yes, I'm from Brazil, originally born and raised, obsessed with the American culture from a young age, obviously through the influence of movies and music and all of that. And from a very young age, I was very interested in the English language and the culture, and I started teaching English when I was very young, already tutoring my friends, and that's been a lot of the path that has taken me to where I am now. Obviously, many twists and turns, but English is not my first language, and I was not born here.
Wow, and your English is very, very strong. What time frame did you move here?
So I actually moved when I got married. So I didn't move until I was an adult. So I was 23.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you've definitely very articulate with the English language for sure.
Thanks. It's been the goal.
Yeah, it does have ebbs and flows. It's very, very liberal, some of the words we use for sure. Um, so I'm interested. So you got married. Tell us a little bit about your family. I know there's an amazing story in there.
Yes. So I actually met my husband in church. My mom is a pastor, and she started receiving American ministers in her church. So that was a lot of my journey with languages, is that I started translating like the newsletters and things. And then eventually I was selected since I was the pastor's daughter, and it was just easier than hiring someone. I was the interpreter. So I would interpret for ministers, on stage for large conferences of up to like 1,000 people. And we would do that twice, sometimes three times a year. And eventually my mom started coming to those ministers' churches here in America. And it was in one of those conferences in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that I met my husband for the first time. We dated long distance for about 5 years, which seemed like an eternity. So I met him when I was 18, which was crazy. It's crazy to think that pretty soon here I will have known him more years than not knowing him. Um, because we were both so young. So when we got married, he was living in Colorado at the time. And that's when I moved, lived here for a few years. I got my master's in linguistics at CU Denver, which was again a continuation of my studies, of the English language and teaching it and stuff. And then we decided to move back to Brazil to sort of try it out there. And also because we were already thinking about getting pregnant. And I wanted to do it close to my family, right? As the woman, and especially, being so close to my family as a Latin culture. And after we moved, after a couple years, I got pregnant. And it was actually a big, big surprise because I got pregnant with triplets. And it was not something I was planning or expecting, as you can imagine. But in 2016, I gave birth to two boys and one girl. And it's crazy to think that they just turned 10 about a little over a month ago. And my journey as an entrepreneur has really gone hand in hand with their lives because I started a little bit after they were born. So as I celebrate their birthdays, I'm also celebrating milestones in my own business. So it's been a wild ride.
Oh my goodness. First of all, let me say, we'll go back a little bit here in a second. But that's amazing about the triplets. It's amazing. You're one of the few people that I've met that I can say this to that will totally understand it. So we adopted three at the same time, and we had zero and went to three. So a
Mhm.
little different, but still, some of the effect is the same.
Yeah.
So my joke about it is, and I don't know if you're a basketball fan or anybody watching is a basketball fan. We never got to play man-to-man defense as parents. We went straight to zone. More kids than parents right away.
Yeah. It's wild. Being outnumbered is very tricky.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like I've had a nap since.
Yeah, I
You can
know.
probably relate to that.
Gosh, the whole sleeping thing and just, I guess, the quiet as well. It's like moments of silence are either, very few and far between or concerning. Like,
Yeah,
why are you so
right.
quiet?
Oh my goodness, I so relate. So let's go back a little bit. So when you were graduating high school in Brazil, I know you mentioned you went to college, but did you meet your husband to be before high school was over, or
No.
because you were
So
18, so it was just
I was in college. So I was in college, and
okay.
my trajectory, from graduating high school to going to college was very unique in some ways because, at that age, many people are like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And the education system in Brazil is a little different to where you have to pick your major before you actually apply to the university. It's not, the general ed, and then you get to select. You apply for something that you're going to be committing for 4 years, which is tricky because many people drop out and start over. But I knew. So I actually only applied to one university because they had a major that was so unique, which was translation. I essentially already had a career before I
Yeah.
finished high school because of church. That was it. I knew how to do it. I did it really well and I loved it. It was fun for me, especially the interpretation side of things, like the dynamics of I don't have to reread, re-edit and rethink. It's like whatever comes out comes out and I just love the dynamics of that. However, they didn't have an interpreting major, but they did have a translation major. And it was just so fun to study like the origins of language. I studied Latin. It was just my playground of linguistics and understanding things that I already knew and was using, but didn't know in depth enough because I had just graduated high school. So, and what was actually cool too is that I knew as part of their curriculum, they would teach you French because
Mm.
English was a given, right? And I mean, we speak Portuguese. It's not like we're fluent in Spanish, but it's close enough. And so they had French, which was something I had no contact with previously. So I took it upon myself in my senior year to start studying French, even though it wasn't a prerequisite, but that's how much of a nerd I am. I was like, I want to pre-learn before I get in, which was, I didn't even know if I was getting in or not because you have to take a test and apply and all things. But I did get in and I got really passionate about the French culture. Eventually I got to go to France too, which was fun. But yeah,
Nice.
that was the path.
Nice. So I'm thinking like Brazil might have it right. I mean, I know there's, pros and cons to everything, but I kind of like that you have to be focused on a major before you get there. You already described the downside, obviously, but that does force an
Mhm.
18-year-old to get super laser focused quick.
Yeah,
So I kind of like
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
I, I'm sure you get asked this all the time. I'm curious for those of us that don't understand the nuances of interpreting,
Mm.
just looking at it from 30,000 feet, if you will, is it hard to keep up?
It is. It really depends on the person. I think the more acquainted you are with the speaker, which I grew very acquainted and familiar with the speakers that I was translating to the point where even if he didn't finish the sentence, I could finish the sentence, which there's also the nuances of you're not supposed to add or subtract. That's, the ethics of interpreting. Because moving forward after living here in America and moving here to America, I started interpreting in the legal scenario. I got certified. So that's a different beast of itself because you really don't want to interfere. But in the context of church and what was going on, I knew the subject really well. I had to because that's part of it, right? You get to study that topic because you need to know the language. And I think it depends on how familiar you are with the topic, how familiar you are with the speaker. Also, the speaker needs to be aware of the interpreter. So that's another factor. Many people are not used to interpretation, but if they are, they know to pause and to pause at a certain, sentence or at a moment that will make it make sense if it's translated, because obviously it's not word for word, it's thought and meaning. So those are the biggest factors I would say, and practice, because it's a skill that you get, to get better at the more you do it. And it's really fascinating, honestly, to see how our brains are so smart that it's connected like that. I mean, even as we're speaking, that's why languages are so fascinating to me because I'm not thinking about every single word that's coming out of my mouth. I have a thought and it's coming out. But that's what happens with interpretation is that you receive that same thought, but it comes out in a different language. It's wild. I love it.
Fascinating. So you go to school for this. You've done it on big stages. Now, help me understand. Like, can you parlay this into full-time work?
Yes, so it really depends on where you are. So the challenge that I found in Brazil was that my main language, or my language pair, they call it, was Portuguese and English. Now here I am, fresh out of college, 20 some years old. There are people in their 50s and their 60s that have been doing this for decades. They're going to have a lot more of a, companies are going to have a lot of more of a preference, and they have more credibility to hire people that have been longer in the game, because you just hire somebody that has more experience. And so the majority of work that I found, aside from the church work, was just teaching. And that doesn't pay that well, or even written translation. And at the time, they didn't even have as many tools, AI tools as they have today. So it's interesting to think about what the translation industry is right now. I'm not really in it because I do more interpreting and plus my own business. But
Mhm.
it's not very well paid at all. And so once I moved to America, I realized that Portuguese, on the other hand, is more of a commodity than English is in Brazil, you know? Because
Mhm.
here there's a lot more Spanish speakers. Portuguese interpreters are not that easy to find, especially qualified Portuguese interpreters. So, but even so, it wouldn't necessarily be a full-time thing because then there's not that many jobs, but you get to make more money than you would in Brazil. I don't know if that makes sense, but it is
It
possible. It
does.
just takes a long time. So in at the amount of time that you are building your credibility and getting found and getting hired, you're going to have to be doing something else, such as translation work or teaching, which doesn't pay as much.
And you did some of the teaching too, right?
I did. I did a lot of the teaching. That was the majority of what I did. I mean, that's how I started. And I really liked it. I mean, it's fun to me. And even as somebody that continues to learn things, I find it fascinating the fact that, when I go get my nails done, for example, I understand nothing of what those people, usually Vietnamese people are saying. It sounds like nothing. Like, are you joking? This doesn't even sound like a language. But I know because I went through this with English and with French, all of a sudden it makes sense. And once it makes sense, you can't unmake it make sense. You just hear it and you know what they're saying. And it's just fascinating to be the person that helps somebody start picking apart the sounds and the words and then being able to communicate. Like, language is fascinating to me.
That is fascinating. So what grade and subjects did you tend to teach?
So I used to teach mostly English and English as a second language, especially in language schools, because
Mhm.
I mean, you have pretty much one in every corner down in Brazil, people opening languages schools, because the English that is taught in schools, actual schools, is not very much in depth. So when you're thinking being able to communicate, adding that to your resume for your future in your career, it is very common that an extracurricular activity for Brazilian students is they take private English lessons. And so that's where I worked. I worked for different schools, and I actually started teaching privately, which allowed me to charge more money. I would go to people's houses or they would come to my house. Um, and that's a lot of how I made my living.
Fascinating. So was it when you got here to the States? Give us the journey of how you jumped into the entrepreneur waters. Was it all at once, or did you have both feet in two different boats for a while?
Yeah, so when I first moved, I started going through the master's program. So my focus was on the master's. I had just gotten married. I don't even know how it was, but I started teaching Portuguese as a second language to a couple Americans that found me through whoever, and they would come to my house. So I kept that same structure pretty much. After I had the kids, we moved back to America. That's when something clicked. And now looking back, I didn't know this then. I wasn't saying this then, but now looking back, I know that what it was I've spent so far, almost 30 years of my life at that point teaching or sharing somebody else's message. Now it's time to share my message. Now it's time to
Mhm.
share my story. And that's when I began what is now. Initially, I started with network marketing because, I was fresh postpartum. It was 2016. Every single person on Facebook was selling something and saying, join my company. You can make some money while your babies are napping. And that's what I did. And I realized I was really good at creating content, sharing, having conversations with people, but in a very entrepreneurial fashion. I soon realized I didn't want to sell somebody else's products. I didn't want to have somebody dictating how much it costs, what I needed to do. I wanted to do my own thing because I wanted more control out of it, And so that's when I saw the possibility of I could start my own coaching business. And I started with like more life coaching, personal development, which was very much in line with what I had already been brought up with, being brought up in church. It felt very natural to me, like a natural progression, because it was still teaching, but in a different way. And eventually, because of how I presented myself online, I started mentoring women, especially around marketing. So, how do you position yourself? How do you create an offer? How do you talk to people about it? How do you convert, conversations that are just friendly conversations into actual sales? And it was after I did my TED Talk and published my first book that I started focusing more specifically on speaking, which again made a lot of sense. I had been speaking for years, not in an entrepreneurial way, but I had been used to being in front of people and speaking, not my message, but still speaking, in front of thousands. So that's when I guess I felt more equipped to teach people because they had seen me do it in a different context and in inside my business. So that's where, the iteration of the business that exists right now, it actually started then.
Inquiring minds want to know. 2016, I'm assuming this coaching, a lot of it is probably virtual or a lot
Yeah.
of it's in person. Is it
Yeah.
kind of a
Virtual.
blend?
No, because I mean, my kids were babies, right? They were
Mm,
9 months old when we moved back to America, and that's when I decided to start the online business. So a lot of what I did, I want to say pretty much until the pandemic. And then the pandemic. So what was interesting was in 2019, they were 3 years old. So I was able to put them in preschool. And I was like, now I can network in person. Now I can, be free from the online world. And then about a year later, everything shuts down. They have to come home. I can't take them to preschool. But that was really the divider of waters for me because I could have said, I guess this is not for me and I should just stop. Well, and I let me backtrack just for a second because you asked, did you have feet in, two sides?
yeah.
Um, so at the same time that I was building my business, I started pursuing interpretation here in America because being a part of the Brazilian community, lots of Brazilians knew me, we would connect. People started asking, you speak English so well. Can you help me at this doctor's appointment? Can you help me at this attorney's office? And it was an attorney that told me, are you a certified interpreter? And I was like, I don't, a court interpreter. And I said, I don't know what that means. And he said, you should look it up at the judicial's website um, because it pays well. So I went through the whole process while I was, building the business. It was, a journey of figuring out where I wanted to take this and what was going to actually work. And I did take it pretty far, I want to say, because I did have to take 2 exams to be certified. So I'm actually the only Portuguese court interpreter in Colorado because I've taken all the tests. And I do, I used to do it a lot more than now because of scheduling and stuff. And it was interesting. It was I like learning new things, and it's nice to feel helpful because especially in the legal setting, it can be scary for people in a different country. They don't speak the language, they don't know what's going on, and they feel like am I going to jail because I got a traffic a speeding ticket?
Mm,
So I joke, but obviously they're concerned for their lives. And there's a lot of
yeah.
like, custody cases, divorces, which those are hard, and ultimately made me decide that is not something I want to pursue full time. I would rather empower people in different ways because as an interpreter, you feel kind of powerless. You're supposed to be powerless. You are just relaying messages, right?
Wow. That's remarkable that you're the only one in Colorado. I was thinking back to your early coaching days, digital platform. Some people watching this aren't even going to know what I'm talking about. Are we talking about Skype? Are we talking about Cisco? What are we talking about?
Um, well, there was Zoom back then already. It wasn't what it is right now, and I certainly didn't have the paid account. So it was, 40 minutes you were cut off because budget was tight back then. But Facebook groups, I mean, that is where
Yeah.
I hung out the most. And yeah, no, I certainly remember using Skype, but I think mostly for the coaching and just used Zoom back then.
My joke about Zoom is people forget it's been around since the early 70s. If they
Yeah.
remember the Brady Bunch,
Hmm.
the squares on the Brady Bunch show at the beginning and the end. I'm just joking. Um, let's talk about your TEDx for a minute. So tell us what you spoke on and what has been the benefits of having done that.
Yeah, so the talk was focused obviously on going through challenges, unexpected, voluntary and involuntary challenges in
Uh,
life. So, voluntary, my move to America and marrying my husband when we hadn't been around each other a whole lot. It was a long distance relationship. So, there was a lot of unknowns in the process. And then the involuntary, obviously, having triplets.
mm,
And learning to see the silver linings and the lessons in everything. So the talk is called The Transformational Power of Defeat. When I first pitched it, I had focused more on the word grief. I talked about grieving the life I thought I wanted or that I was going to have, and then adjusting to a different culture. Like for me, like living in America sounded amazing. Like that's what I want. And not that I regretted it once I was here, but there is a culture shock, even for somebody as Americanized as I was.
you
Um,
bet.
it's hard to be away from your family, not having any friends, going to the grocery store and all the foods are different. You start gaining weight, you don't know how to cook for yourself. Like, especially coming from my parents' house, which is very common Latin culture as well. Like, I hadn't lived on my own before, and I'd go from my parents to my husband's house, or company. And so it was a big shift. It was a big, like, it's time to grow up type situation. So that was a shock. And then having triplets and all of the things that come through. And then, so in the talk, I mention the 3 questions you can ask yourself, or the 3 steps you can go through to find that silver lining when things don't go the way you expected. So the first one is to forgive yourself, forgive the circumstances you can't control, and forgive others. And then the next one is to empower yourself. Remind yourself that you've done hard things before. Like, maybe not in this context. Whatever we're living today that is hard, we feel like it's the hardest ever, but that's not true.
Mm,
You
mm,
know, so going back and being like, I've been through some things, like, that helps you empower yourself.
yeah.
Like, this is not so new. It is, but it's not. And then the final reminder is the transformation. Like, had this not happened, I wouldn't be here. So it's a lot of gratitude I feel for the unknowns, or the unexpected. Like, I didn't expect to have triplets, or there was a lot of resistance from my family around my marriage. But if I had not done all these things, I wouldn't be here today in this capacity. I know for a fact that if I had stayed in Brazil, I wouldn't have the business that I have right now. And I feel so much in alignment with my calling and with my purpose. And it took all those challenges. It took me putting myself in a completely different spot and doing hard things.
Yeah, I love your perspective on doing hard things. That's really healthy. I'm remiss having not asked you about your twins.
Oh,
All the same gender or a little bit of combination?
2 boys, 1 girl. So I feel like I got the best out of it all. That's what I wanted, honestly, because I'd always envisioned myself as being a boy mom. So I knew I had to have at least 1 boy in the mix. So I got 2 and my little princess. So it's perfect.
Oh, that's awesome. That's our combination too. Our oldest is a girl, then the 2 boys after that. Um, so let me ask you this. What was it in this period of time that you just described? Um, how are you viewing yourself through these difficult challenges? Was there a struggle of self-worth, lack of love for yourself, all those different things under that umbrella, limited thinking? Um, just describe how you were feeling during those challenges.
Yeah, I think the biggest, I would say the hardest moments for me were postpartum, as you would imagine, for many reasons, but also because it was triplets and we moved back to America, kind of started from scratch. Um, and I felt this pull to start the business, and there was resistance from my family. And, I'm grateful to them. They care for me and they didn't want me to overwhelm myself, but I felt the need to do something else for me. And it may not have come across in a positive or productive way to them. And so I feel like in those moments, I felt like I needed to prove my worth, or that I don't know. In many ways, it was a conversation that I was having with myself, but it was public, not only
Yeah.
because I was, sharing it with the world on social media, but because I was building a business out of it. And it was then that I started understanding more about personality types, and that is exactly what I decided to write about in my book, which is using the personality framework called the Enneagram. And that was a tool that really helped me understand that there was nothing wrong with me and I wasn't broken. It's just the way that I'm wired. I am a competitive person by nature. I am an achiever. I'm not going to sit still and just, enjoy the sun. I'm learning to, but that's not my default. The default is
Mhm.
to strive. And I started understanding that there are more people that are like that, and the world needs those people to accomplish things, right? We need each other to balance each other out. And I always say that the best analogy ever from the Bible is that we are a body, we're parts of a body. right? So
Yep.
we need to have certain pieces that are driving, the car, and then there are pieces that are just there to support, and they all have a role. Anyway, so having my kids really forced me to reflect on this, like, who are you and why do you feel this way? And then understanding that a lot of this came from me being a second child. And I write about this in my book, like hearing from my mom that she didn't plan to have another one because it was hard enough to have one. And it was a surprise, but it was a good surprise. And I think in many ways, now looking back, I saw that as, I didn't want you. It came, you're great, love you. But we didn't plan for this. And it's how I took it as a child. And in my
Mhm.
mind, thought, I need to stand out. I need to, earn my place here because it wasn't something that was wanted or planned. So a lot of me striving has had to do with that thought and that belief about myself that I have held, since I was young. But now as an adult, I see things differently. As a mom, I see things differently. That's not necessarily what she meant. And even if it was, I get to choose my identity and how I feel. But yeah.
I appreciate you being real about that. I've got some abandonment in my life, and I just, even though I've gained tools along the way to heal from that, it's really been the last couple of years from a mindset perspective that I've realized, gosh, that's why I've been striving. And there's a lot of perfectionism and procrastination and all that. I don't want to go too deep in the weeds with that, but that all comes from that origin. And I'm hearing some similarities, different foundation, so to speak, but still have the same effect.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating. So let's go back to TEDx for just a second. Not TED. By the way, I would love it if when we're done, if you could drop, if you're willing to do this, if you want to drop your TEDx video into the
Absolutely.
comments section, that would be awesome.
Yes, I can do that.
So I'm assuming, I know that can get me in trouble, but I'm assuming your love for speaking led you to want to help other people tell their story. How did that come about?
Yes, absolutely. So it went hand in hand with, I was helping people with marketing, which in many ways is to help them share their message, right? And share their business. And then I started venturing into speaking because that's such a natural progression to me. I started seeing how much of an amazing um, tool to build authority it is, confidence, and also for lead generation. People tend to trust somebody that's standing in front of the room if they do a good job a lot
Mm,
more than somebody sitting next to them, right? So you go to a next networking meeting, you meet somebody sitting next to you, you connect, depending on the interaction, right? But typically you don't necessarily see them as, oh my gosh, need to learn from you, right? Whatever. It's a connection. Let's network, have a coffee later, whatever. Now, if there is a speaker in that same scenario, and then you connect with them on social media, and then they send you a message, that's different. You already view that person in a different way. Again, if they are a good speaker, right? If you resonate with them, because they were in a place of authority and in a position of prominence. So me being the stage person and understanding and witnessing firsthand how people viewed me differently, I started leveraging it more. And then people started asking, how are you doing this? How are you, getting in there? What do you say? How are you so confident? And to me, it's like, I don't know, I'm just doing it because I see it's good. But then I started sharing some of the specifics of, this is what works. This is what the content should look like. This is how you follow up with people. This is how you land opportunities, right? All of it. And the more I focused on this, the more I've seen how this is really like an accelerating tool to confidence. Like, this is such
mhm.
a underutilized tool because people are self-conscious, or they think it's going to take them too much time. They think it's a separate thing over here. And to me, it's like, this is your entire business. Your entire business is learning to communicate. And it could be on a large stage, but it could be how you show up on social media, right? To the point where even if you are not the speaker in that meeting, and you're sitting to somebody, but the way you position yourself, they are wanting to work with you and hiring you, right? So it starts that way, but it transforms into just how you carry yourself, the type of thing of you walk in the room and people notice you. This doesn't just happen. It's something that you build over time in your own self-confidence, right? And in social proof, all of that. So that's what I've been doing is helping women feel confident in themselves, but it starts with the content and I essentially extract the uniqueness from their story because there's a handful of people in your network right now that does something similar to you. Why would they go? Why would somebody hire you versus them? And the answer is because only you are you. So are you bringing you to the table or is it just bland? And most people are bland because they don't know their uniqueness, So I get to reflect that back to my clients.
Love that. Love that message. I want to ask you this because you've got your hand in a lot of things. So, and I probably will forgive me if I miss one. So, speaker coach. I don't know if you're still doing life coaching or if it's just the speaker coaching. Writer. We haven't even touched on a professional singer. I've seen some YouTube clips of you doing national anthems.
Mhm.
But let's say Monday,
Mm.
you got to create your own schedule. We took off everything that's on there, even the mom responsibilities, which obviously you want to have that role. But I'm saying from a professional standpoint, um, tell us what the perfect day would look like from the time you wake up to your routine in the morning. Would it be two or three coaching calls? Would it be flying somewhere to speak? Would it be writing, would it be writing 500 words? Would it be ending the night with a national anthem or doing a singing gig? I know that's a lot. Give us your perfect day.
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking about this morning actually because I had a busy morning and it's hard to think about a reality without kid drop off and all that because I mean that's all that I do. But I feel so successful when I'm able to sneak in eating breakfast, just sitting down without rushing and then taking my dog for a walk because my dog is insane. He's a Doberman and he's 4, but he acts like a puppy still, and he just bounces off the walls, and he will not, be denied his daily walk, even if I run. So it's faster. Like today, I had to kind of run, so it was 7 minutes because that's all I had.
Oh
So
my.
whenever I accomplish that, because I'm like, I know he's gonna bother me the rest of the day until I take him. So, anyways, but to answer your question, I think, I don't know. I like variety. So thinking about the perfect day, I don't think that there is a perfect day. I like being able to dress up and go to an event and meet with people, take pictures, post them, connect with people afterwards, sing, speak. But I also like the days when I'm just, wearing workout clothes and helping clients plan for their next event or create their talk. So I guess if I were to create 24 hours though, it would be a mix, which would be kind of exhausting to do it all.
Yeah.
But I love it all, and that's why I dabble on so many things. It's interesting when you were first starting your question. Something else that it's not part of my list, but maybe I should add it soon, is that for the last 2 years I started practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a martial art. And that was not in my bingo card at all. But because of the kids, I started doing it and it just got really hooked. And that's a part of my almost daily routine is that I step away to take a class. And that has been very helpful in my business journey to not be so focused and sitting down doing work, like busy work. It's like I only have this amount of time. What do I got to do? Because I got to get ready and leave. So that I could add that in to the perfect day is
Yeah.
squeezing in a class.
Yeah. I mean, you do have a full life for sure. Do you get 8 hours of sleep or less?
I usually get about 8 or 7. That is something that I really pride myself in. I will say that a few years ago, I was on a podcast about health, and I don't typically talk about health because that's not my focus. But I would say that the reason why I have so much energy is for one, I go to bed early and I wake up early because my husband is an early riser, sometimes, 5 a.m. or before. So we have to go to bed 9:30, 10, pushing it. But that's as far as it goes. Um, I work out first thing in the morning, so that gives me energy. Now I've included jujitsu, so sometimes I'm getting two workouts in, which helps with energy. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't really drink. I mean, socially, casually, but I know that that slows me down, and I won't be slowed down.
You won't. I think that's come through loud and clear. You're not going to be slowed down. Any anything brewing just around the corner that you can give us a sneak peek at, or maybe not?
Um, I feel like I always have something coming up where I'm speaking somewhere, but something that just came about today, actually, I did a podcast swap with another woman entrepreneur. She has a marketing agency, and I was sharing with her about the struggles at times in marriage because I'm married to a man that is not an entrepreneur. So there are, advantages and advantages there. And she really commiserated with me because she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm living the same life. Like I get you." And we were like, maybe we should go live or do something together for Women's History Month and speak to women that are married to men that are not entrepreneurs and what does that
Mm,
sound like? Because I think obviously there are advantages and disadvantages to both, but we know businesses can really challenge life in general, but it can also challenge your marriage. So we're doing it in March. I think March 19th. We're going live on LinkedIn and we're going to talk about that. So if any ladies out there want to join us, that's coming up.
that's exciting. That's really creative. I like that. Tell folks where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so you can find me anywhere. I'm the only Marta Spirk that exists, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you just Google me, you'll be able to find my website, podcast, all of it. But LinkedIn, Marta Spirk, Instagram, Marta Spirk. I have my book on Amazon. My podcast is called The Empowered Woman, and you can find my music on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, all of it.
Excellent. We'll have all the social media links in the show notes for sure. And just to remind you, Marta, please drop the TEDx in there. If you want to drop the Amazon link, you may have already given it to me. I'll have to check when we get done. But if I don't have the Amazon link for the book, you can throw that in the
Okay,
comment section too.
sure.
Would be great. So, any last words of encouragement? Anything at all that you want to share from your heart to the viewers?
Well, since we're talking about, feeling worthy, that was a quote that I came across early on in my business that I've really held on to that I really love. It's by a British poetess. And it says, "See your beauty without a compliment and without a mirror." And I stand by that one, and that's a daily reminder, not seeking validation from outside of yourself, which is so, so hard. uh, Not to do, right? Your worth is within you, you know? And when we're talking about striving and all of that, like the more I've reconnected with God and strengthened my relationship with Him, it's been easier to see I don't have to do anything. I just get to be me and I am worthy. I'm worthy of love and worthy of everything. So yeah, you don't need that external validation. Just feel it and know it.
Yeah, I love that reminder. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being with us today. And I know we just probably scratched the surface, but sharing your journey, it's been an intriguing one. It's been a fascinating one. I mean, I hope you feel that way, that your journey's been exciting.
Yeah, so it has. It has not been
Yeah.
told, that's for sure.
Well, you know what? That's what we want. We want the dash. We can't control the day we were born. We
Yeah.
can't control the day we exit, but the dash, we want it to be exciting, and you have that. So, thank you for sharing a part of that with us today, and sharing your heart for people today for sure. And it's been really, really my honor to have you as our guest today. Thank you so much,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
guys. I just want to remind you that whatever season you've been through that's been really, really hard, you know the one I'm talking about, that crushing heavy season, it's hard, right? Or maybe you're in that season of meh, yeah, it is what it is. Or maybe you're on the rocket ride right now. Maybe you're blasting off. Wherever you're at on that spectrum, here's what I want to encourage you with. You're worthy today. Doesn't change when everything goes your way tomorrow. Doesn't change when everything crashes around you. You're worthy in the moment. Your story matters. God's not done with your story yet. You know why I know that? Because he gave you another day today, and not everybody got that. Be encouraged. I appreciate each one of you. Till next time, God bless.